Well, hello, y'all. This is Market Explainer. We are the Business News Podcast. My name is Danny, and as always, I'm brought to you together with my partner in crime, the junior co-host here. Think me.
I am the bigger, much louder, much more obnoxious,
Junior co-host,
and much more intelligent co-host.
Hey, before we get rolling, folks, I just want to ask you to do us a favor. We have a Patreon. We are getting our levels and tiers set up on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Market Explainer. Go join our Patreon. We're gonna have
join our Patreon.
We're gonna have a cheap tier. We're gonna start throwing up content over there. Also, if you could do us a favor, I don't want you to blast. I don't want you to smash it or blast it or do anything unkind. I just want you to gently caress. Okay, like it's a puppy.
When you say gently caress, it makes me nervous. So I'm sure it makes everyone else.
Just hit that like button.
Hit the like, subscribe. I say hit. Okay. Yeah, but yeah.
I don't want to use that kind of divisive, violent language. I don't want you to hit anything or anyone. I just want you to gently hit that like button.
No, quit. Please stop. Please stop. Go.
Hey, like button, what's going on? Hey,
stop
what's
it.
up, subscribe button?
Stop.
Come here
Get
often.
into our stories, Danny. Stop it. It's making me uncomfortable.
This is an awesome story. This first one. We have 4 fantastic stories. We've got a lot to get into today. We are always, like I always like to say, we are definitely better than Group Chat Pod. This first one, piece of gold, it is a marker that our economy is amazing and there's zero inflation and there's nothing to be concerned about. As we all know, the price of housing is skyrocketing, and it's perfectly fine. No reason to panic. Has
17% last month.
Has nothing to do with the massive money printing going on at the Federal Reserve. It's totally fine. Everyone remain calm. Don't listen to conspiracy theorists that are saying that this means the end of the good economy in America. All wacky. But now they're going to give you a 40-year mortgage. Ginnie Mae, which for people who don't understand, is this weird incestuous thing where it's defined as a GSE, a government-sponsored entity.
Correct.
Which is a fancy way of saying the federal government's bank. Right?
In a way, yes.
So Ginnie Mae, I mean, am I incorrect in saying that Ginnie Mae outlines the product and the banks pick it up and they start offering it to people, and then Ginnie Mae at some point in time in the transaction ends up acquiring the loan back while it is managed by the bank?
That is a correct and layman's way of putting it. But yes, They design products that they think that the government can sell that are government backed, right? So yes. And in this way, they believe that they can, because currently, look, when you say incestuous, the mortgage industry as a whole, the banking industry as a whole is very incestuous. People make money from each other in a billion different ways. The way loans are handed back and forth and money changes hands back and forth. The mortgage industry and the way it runs all across America, it's how lower levels of mortgage functions is the ability to sell these on the back end, right? And that kind of stuff. And you have second and third markets. So Ginnie Mae's real job, as you said, is to create products that they think can sell on the secondary market, and if they do take hold. So the reason I'm putting that disclaimer on it is just because Ginnie Mae creates this product doesn't necessarily mean that the market
is going to pick it up and
is going to pick it up. And if the secondary market doesn't pick it up, no one will offer a 40-year mortgage. Right. This happens sometimes. They come out with a product or the government, when they use Ginnie Mae to do it, comes out with a new home buyer bonus or something like that may not be picked up on the secondary market, because the secondary market...
Which is where the product really matters, is because Ginnie Mae is not they don't go to the consumer, correct? They're a bank.
Correct.
They're a bank to bank. They're a B2B. So what's interesting about this is kind of like if you look at, our cousins to the north, America's hat, Canada. You look at Canada's housing market, and if you're like me and you watch some of those fake HGTV shows, kind of understand it. I actually have family in Canada on both in Toronto and in BC, Vancouver, British Columbia. you kind of understand that, adjusted for the change in currency, housing there is like the entire country is like New York and California, right? Housing is priced silly, right? Is
Right.
absurd. I think British Columbia has some of the most expensive real estate. You want a small house there adjusted for the difference in currency, 2,000 square feet. I don't know what it is in meters because I'm an American, but the equivalent of a
I always have to
2,000
put a
square.
calculator in there. I don't get it.
No, I'm American, so none of this, like, whatever your weird French numbers are, don't mean anything to me.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, like, the equivalent of a 2,000 square foot house, we're into the half a plus $1 million adjusted for, like, in most of these major markets. And sure, in the smaller markets, Calgary and other places, prices aren't so crazy. But the majority of the population of Canada lives 100 miles from the U.S. border, and they also majority live in these bigger cities, just like the U.S. But they have 40-year mortgages up there.
Well, look, they did this in the automotive industry in the last 15 years, right?
Correct.
In the 90s and 2000s, you were not getting a loan on a car that was more than 5 years.
Correct.
You just weren't. They were all
Like
between 3 and 5 years. 5
Right.
years, 60 payments was the max you would find on a car. Now,
And that
as
was
cars, go ahead.
wild too back then.
Yeah,
That was
and as
wild.
cars got more expensive, they realized that people could not afford the payments with the 60 more, 60-month payments. So how can I get more of these expensive cars sold? Well, some bank out there started selling 72-month notes. And now you can buy a
84.
Tesla on an 8-year loan, right?
84, isn't it 84
Yeah,
months?
I think it's something like that. It doesn't. The point is now you have 6, 7, and 8-year loans on cars. Now that is so that they can sell you a higher priced product, bringing that monthly
Right.
payment down. However, that also means that if you're the average American that buys your house and sells it between 5 and 10 years down the road, you've now
Right.
paid less on your house because you were stretching that payment. And during that time, the bank has made more.
Correct.
You've paid less into your overall wealth,
And
the bank has made more.
And if you've paid less, your capacity to build equity, because you're coming to the
Lessens.
table with it's lower. So again, like I said at the beginning, this is not a bad omen for the economy. Everything is perfectly fine. Keep spending consumer dollars on your credit card. Not a big deal. America's the greatest country in the world. Nothing wrong here. There's
Okay,
no such
stop
thing
it.
as inflation.
Look, I have zero problems with this existing.
Okay.
They're going to put it through the FHA system, right? They're going to offer the product through the FHA system, which
means
has barriers.
The poorest people are the ones who go FHA.
Again, but that's still most mortgages, right? So this will impact most mortgages. They're also, the thing that I found interesting about this, though, typically when the government creates a product, Ginnie Mae creates a product, they have all kinds of stipulations around it, like VA loans, right, or USDA loans. They all have these.
If you remember back to when this thing that happened in my lifetime, in your lifetime, the crash of 2000, the great
Right.
financial crisis, in which I was a 17-year-old mortgage broker. Don't ask how that worked out.
The Great Recession, yes.
Yeah. There was an organization within the federal government, an arm of the executive branch, called Housing and Urban Development. And in 2008, their direction to GSEs, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, was that 56% of their loans had to be subprime, which is a fancy way of saying, hey, you have to give over half of the loans that you give out to people have to be people who cannot afford
Right.
the loan.
Well, but that obviously changed. That with all the new rules and regulations, that changed, right? And they have a lot of. It's much more difficult to get a loan in today's world. So the FHA came out and said, "Look, if this product, it's supposed to come out between now and October,
Right.
if we do get this product out and the market does respond, meaning we can sell them on the secondary market, that investors
Right.
are buying them,
Right.
then." The FHA guidelines that currently exist for 15, 20, 25, and 30-year mortgages apply to this. However, unlike those, there is no loan limit. So FHA has a loan limit. It's a calculation based on the city and state, the average, right, or whatever. They don't want you using government money to overspend on loans and stuff like that. So there's a limit, right? Like here in Austin, it's around $400,000, right? You know what I mean? But there's a limit. If there's no limit on a 40-year loan, meaning you meet all the other FHA criteria, right, but there's no loan limit, now you have millionaires taking advantage of a 40-year product. Or
and again, let me point something out. This will work fine. Programs like this, devised by the government, have never backfired, never inflated the housing market before. They've never crashed the housing market before. So there's no reason to be concerned here at all.
This is one of those where if I had a crystal ball and I was guessing, like a lot of programs that you talk about the Great Recession, it's going to... Millionaires love it. Millionaires don't care about how much interest they pay on loans, because they get to keep their money in their pocket. They get to invest it. Millionaires make more money off of their money in their accounts than they ever would on any loan that they pay for. Right?
And millionaires and billionaires, they love a couple of things, and one of the things they love is debt, because debt creates it's not taxable. So they have the cash to go buy. They put their cash in an investment. They take the investment returns. They take out a loan against that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they have access to their capital without paying taxes. They'll happily pay 10, 15% interest. It doesn't matter, but they'll happily pay 10%. Right. They'll write off the interest.
So it's still income because it's a write-off. It's still in. So billionaires will love this rule, and poor people, it's going to kill them. We talked about on
never happened before.
We've talked about on this podcast before about generations and how, owning a home and this kind of stuff. And Danny and I think a little differently about the, wealth and owning a home and whatever. But this goes, again, more into your side of if you are between your 20s and 40s and you're signing a 40-year lease, or a 40-year mortgage, you are putting yourself in a situation where that home... That ROI, even with values going up the way they're going, it still makes it crazy math.
So let's just, there's that clip in The Big Short. And my favorite part about that movie is they start the story of how this entire market got inflated in the middle of the story. And just neglected the part where the government was pulling the strings. They put everything at the feet of these greedy bankers. I'm a anarchist, but I'm a capitalist, right? I'm a strict free market anarchist guy, right? I'm not like a huge fan of the bankers. I'm not waving Citibank's flag around, okay?
Right.
But I'm also saying they're greedy bankers. Okay, we expect them to be greedy bankers. But when the government permits them and says, here's a way to be an even greedier bastard, okay? So, again, I'm just saying, I think it was over 52, I think it's over half, 52% of millennials in a survey recently that I think I'm pulling this, it was an article from CNBC, said they regretted going to college because the volume of debt and how that debt put them behind in life. So let's just use this as a jumping off point for me to say my crazy thing, which is maybe buying a single family home to live in as a residence and the big man is correct. This is the easiest entry into building wealth for every person. My parents are immigrants to this country. This is one tool they used to build wealth, was a home. Now, and it served them well because when they want to buy the next one, they're not they're buying a way more expensive home. They progressively bought more expensive homes, but they're not coming out of pocket with a lot more money, right? It's always the home that they lived in increased in value. They're capturing that value and they're just passing it down the road into a bigger house. So, but it is a good time to reconsider the proposition, not saying you should invest in real estate, that the proposition that, you're going to buy a house and live in it and that's going to be a good investment for you. Because these are markers that the government is communicating something to the market in a roundabout way, which is we don't expect houses to get any cheaper anytime soon. right?
No, and they don't. And there's been I've seen a lot of stuff. Obviously, on a real estate company, my nose is in the grindstone of all real estate news all the time. And there's a lot of people spouting, again, the moratorium, the default moratorium ends at today. We're recording this podcast. There's a couple of things in the works, and this is not that show. We'll get into that in a different thing. Maybe I'll do a blog post about it. But the point, though, is this came about as a way to help. Like, for example, if you lost your job last year and you've been utilizing the moratorium on your back mortgage, right? It is not mortgage forgiveness. This may make the numbers work for that bank to be able to change your loan because the payments are lower and whatever. Now, again, for the small percentage of people that may actually help, right? Having a tool available for them is a good thing. The problem
I'm not against this, okay? I'm not against anything. I'm just suggesting that the way it's going to be used, the same way balloon loans that were used,
by ARMs and balloon notes,
adjustable rate mortgages were used for people back in. So I'm just saying I'm not suggesting or in fact believing that this is going to inflate the market tomorrow and it's all going to go kaboom. I'm just saying the trend ain't good. And the long-term result might not be good in the sense that we're going to inflate the market again. And I think I don't know that that's bueno. But again, we have a situation where the Federal Reserve, which is a private, non-private bank, complicated way, but it's a private, non-private. It is the America's central bank is printing so much money, they have to get this money into the market. This money needs velocity. If this capital lacks velocity, this is a merry-go-round that when it stops, it all starts lighting on fire.
Well, and that's why they come out with these new products. We live in an economy that has to move. You and I have talked about this. We live in a transaction-based economy. All of our businesses are incestuous to a certain extent. We all just transfer money to each other all day long. That's what we do. That's what the American economy relies on, is everybody changing money, even though it's the same set of money. But it changing hand constantly is how we function. But what I was getting at, though, is look, the problem is situations are situational. What I mean by that is one of the reasons I do this podcast is to help educate people on how things work and that kind of stuff. I know Danny laughs every time I say that because he has no problem being against that. But my point is when I say situational and people are people, meaning someone uses this product to buy a house. The idea of this being created, the government does not want you to pay a loan for the next 40 years. They know this is not a great benefit to you. What they want you is to use this maybe to get in a home or refinance your home because you lost your job or whatever. And with the idea that when you get another job 6 months from now and your terms are better, you refinance back to a 30-year mortgage, a 15-year mortgage. That is the idea that's written on paper, so all this stuff gets, passed. The problem is people, the people that do these kind of things, that the government can't come back to you and go, hey, it's time for you to refi. You got a job now again, right? You got to blah, 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 yada, yada. You need to refinance. They don't do that. So what happens is that same person that takes advantage of this so that they can refi to get their back mortgage or whatever, a year from now when they do have a job or a better job or a more paying job, they're just going to keep paying this 40-year mortgage instead of doing it.
My payments went from $1,700 to $1,400. Well, dagnabbit, I can afford that boat now.
Right. And I can afford that boat. I can afford that whatever. I can blow that money on nothing.
I'm not a hardcore Dave Ramsey, get out of debt, it's going to be your savior guy. I'm not that guy.
I'm not either.
But I'm also a guy who says, well, carrying tons and tons, being that up to your neck in debt where it's just I can afford my payments, but I can't afford the things that I owe payments on. Yeah. That is a dangerous economy to live in. And I'm just saying that as a guy who is, I'm not saying I'm anti-government at all. I'm just saying some people might define me that way. I'm just saying
I'm one of those people that would definitely define you that way.
Sure. Go ahead. I'm just saying that I don't know that this is a strong signal that they have this is not good for people, I don't think. Now, that being said, if you're someone... I think
it offers a short-term way out for them to say that, hey, I'm doing something. Right? I'm doing something. I know that not everybody...
The entirety of government is, hey, man, we had to do something. So we decided to screw you over completely. which is like, I have conversations with my friends who have certain political persuasions. They're like, well, you had to do something. I was like, so he decided to screw everybody over? That was the plan?
All I'm telling you is if you're looking at this, talk to more than one person. I put money decisions in the same thing I do medical decisions. Right. Talk to more than one person. That's all. Correct. Because there are bad mortgage people out there. If this becomes a product in October, there are bad mortgage people out there. There's somebody that may in some way figure out how to screw you. Just if something doesn't sound right, get more information. Correct. Understand what you're getting into.
Talk to the financial equivalent of a chiropractor, because they'll always tell you something wacky.
Do not do that at all.
But let me just, before we jump into this next story, I do want to just speculate really quick and say, hey, listen, for the millennials out there that are saying, I agree with you, Danny, you're correct, the big man is wild, he doesn't know what he's talking about, we might be screwed. There's still an opportunity for you to go out there and go to cities where you think there's like, for instance, if I, in Texas, if I'm investing in Texas, I might go down to Galveston or South Padre and say, hey, with a 40-year, I can actually buy a house and afford it. And South Padre and Galveston, they're used to short-term rentals as a business. And, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to get a house on a 40-year. And
well, you would have to live in it. You can't use it as an investment property. But,
well, of course, I would live in it. Who said I wasn't going to live in it?
Okay, again, Danny's getting into his scammy behavior. So that's one thing about FHA is it's not, you can't go buy an investment property.
I never said that mortgage. I wasn't going to live in it, big man.
This is for owner occupied only.
This would be owner occupied, and I would just rent out all the other rooms on. I'm just saying,
now to say that they're going to put protocols in place other than asking you, because in Texas, for example, that's all you get asked when you're buying this property owner occupied, right? Like correct. Like that's the hurdle you have to jump for investment properties and
I'm not
Texas.
saying anyone would ever do this, okay, or that you should do this.
No, you should not.
But I'm just saying, like, if you lived in it for 6 months and then decided you didn't want to live in, America's spring break capital, Don't
listen to Danny, folks. He'll get you in trouble. Anyway, what do we got, Danny?
But listen, speaking of inflation, I want to tell you about our sponsor for this segment. Meet the new store of value. It's actually the same as the old store of value. Timeless, thoughtfully designed, and guaranteed to retain value in a way cash won't. An excellent first weight, 2.5 grams of gold, is an excellent first weight for the pro gold investor or the new gold investor to accumulate gold over time. The modern design and a mirror-like finish, you too can get into gold investing. I'm not saying that the world is turning upside down because of the story we just did or anything. I'm just saying that's weird. You can hit the link down in the description down below, and you can go get started with Acre Gold. And hey, by the way, before we get into this next story, we have a website now. Go to marketexplainer.com.
Oh, we do. That's right. I almost forgot about that.
Right. You can go to marketexplainer.com. We have all of our backstories, all of that stuff. We're going to start adding more content there over time, so I want you to head out and check that out. But hey, before all of that matters, Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney.
Danny was so happy when he sent me this story this week, and whatever.
So excited.
So a quick look, as always, when a millionaire, Scarlett Johansson, sues
multi-millionaire,
a billion-dollar company like Disney, for example, it's always about money, right? Like it's just,
you don't say.
It's always about money, right? It's and look. Scarlett Johansson, this is probably her last Marvel movie anyway, so she probably has zero fear about pissing off Disney, right? Like, right. So, like, the Black Widow movie, she died in, spoiler alert, she died in the last major Marvel movie, right? Right. Then they made the spinoff of her. So this is probably it for her, so she's not worried about coming back and playing Black Widow again or whatever. So, because that's always, I assume, in any employee, even as an actor, you're afraid to piss off big executives because you may never work to Disney again, right, or whatever. So, the short story is...
But that does...
Go ahead.
I mean, listen, there is a concern there now, which is like, hey, I've been in employment situations where I absolutely, according to an attorney, was screwed over and had legal cause to go after them. And the attorney's advice was, well, and no one can legally prohibit you from applying for a job with another company.
Right.
And everybody talks, bro. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody talks.
And
And
that's
so
always a danger,
I was
right?
like, listen, if it's a middle six-figure number, I don't need another job from anybody. So it's fine.
Well,
like,
but being
this
blackballed
isn't
in
a middle
Hollywood is a
six-figure
real
salary.
thing. I mean,
What's that?
Keanu Reeves being blackballed in Hollywood is a real thing. I mean, Keanu
Right.
Reeves for what, a decade, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of. So it's a real thing. But look, it essentially is over what Scarlett Johansson and her lawyers think is about $50 million, right? The
So,
short
yeah, it's
story
worth
is, and here's what I don't understand all the time, because I think, and again, legalese, you get into a bunch of different contracts and what's right and wrong. A lot of it's opinions and wording and yada yada. My point though is I try to be a very logical, upfront kind of guy. I like things easy, simple, you know what I mean? Easy to understand. And the fact is Scarlett Johansson knew back in March of this year that they were gonna release this not only in movie theaters, but
Right.
on Disney Plus. She knew back in March, so this is not
This is
like
a streaming service.
which is their streaming Disney Plus.
So let me just explain
They
something really
did
quick.
not, if they didn't just the
Come
weekend
out of
before
nowhere.
the release go, hey,
Right.
we're also going to put this on Disney Plus.
Correct. So here's what, for people who might not understand, we do have a link to the Variety article in the description. But a lot of actors at this level have a deal where they go, hey, listen, half of the draw of this film is me on the title, right?
Right.
So they get a back end cut where they don't get their. So a lot of guys, they'll work for a day rate, or they'll work, on the low end, low end,
Yeah.
work for a day rate, work for a specific number, a contract number. But sometimes they say, hey, listen, for this investment to be worth it to you, for you to want to do this movie, because the studio understands if we get Tom Cruise to do another Mission Impossible, the draw is going to be X. And if we just do a spinoff of Mission Impossible without Tom Cruise, it's going to be a third of that.
Yeah,
So
well,
Tom
and
Cruise
not only from a standpoint of they get a cut on the back, they typically, like in this case, they have bonus structures based on the income. If the income for worldwide is X, you get a
Right.
bonus of Y. So it's not just a percentage; it's also
It
this
bumps
bonus
up.
structure, which is
Right,
what
it-
she's actually suing them over. She's
Right.
making the argument that because they made it available on Disney Plus for $30 a pop, that
Right.
less people went to the movies, which apparently, according to her contract, is all she gets credit for, right?
Which is stupid.
Went to the movies, and that her argument is since less people went to the movies to watch it because they had it available at home, she didn't meet her bonus structure, which would have been another $50 million in her pocket, and she's blaming Disney for that. Now, this is not the first time this has occurred in our post-worldwide era that we've been in. It's
Right.
come up before. Warner Brothers, when they came out with HBO Max, and they came out and said, what was it, midsummer last year, that, hey, all of our movies that are coming out at the movie theaters in the next year or 18 months
Right.
are
They're
going to be
gonna come out.
available on HBO Max as well, day
Right.
one. What they did, because the same contract situation came up with some of their stars, Will Smith, Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, right? They up front went to those people and gave them their max bonus. They basically said, "Here, you know what I mean? Here's what we said you would get, because we're not doing this. We're just gonna. This is a new world we're all living in. We're all figuring it out."
And when they finally came out with Wonder Woman 1984, let me tell you how happy I was that I didn't spend a godforsaken penny to go to the theater and watch that garbage.
It was
hot
not great.
garbage.
I love Wonder
Hot
Woman.
garbage. Yes.
That movie was not great.
The first Wonder Woman was fantastic.
It was fantastic.
The Zack Snyder cut of Justice League.
Oh, fantastic.
Amazing.
Fantastic. So good.
Dedicated half of my life. Like, I dedicated an evening to that.
Yes, you and I, you were like, have you watched it yet? I was like, it's 4 hours, man. Like,
So good.
Great. But,
Yeah.
so in this case, HBO Max, Warner Brothers, did the right thing. Disney, and look, this is not Disney's first rodeo with doing something that the industry says, hey, here's the right thing to do. And Disney goes, well, we're Disney. Forget you. We're going to do whatever we want to do. Them writing her a $50 million check because...
Doesn't mean nothing.
And let's talk about this. So the first weekend Okay, the first weekend numbers came in. It's made over 300 million since it came out. But the first weekend, which is when most people go to the box office to see things, it made $80 million in North America. It made $78 million overseas. So that's 150, right? Something million dollars.
Not a big box office for a weekend opening.
Well, it's actually the lowest of any of the newest Marvel movies since the original. It's actually the lowest, which I'm sure is part of her problem, right?
Right.
But then they made another $60 million off the Disney Plus, off the streaming. She gets $0 of that $60 million that went directly to Disney. And oh, by the way, you and I both know when people go to the movies and you pay a ticket for that,
right,
they are splitting that $158 million with the cinemas, with movie stars, with all kinds of different people, middlemen. That $60 million that you paid $30 a pop to see that in your own home goes straight to Disney. They are splitting it with nobody. So she gets no credit and knows that they made an additional $60 million straight to their bottom line that cost them nothing extra.
But I wonder if her argument is kind of weak because I don't know about you, but I have Marvel fatigue. I don't care anymore. I'm done. Like this after this arc, I don't care anymore. Like I'm out, bro. But I'm just saying the movie didn't do that well on the Disney Plus side either.
No, in the grand scheme of things, like I just said, it is the worst, even during, right, this last 18 months, it is the worst performing movie of the Marvel series. Now, again, you can say, obviously, theaters are still not at capacity and not everybody's going out and whatever. Right. But so you're right. And a lot of people are in your shoes of the Marvel fatigue. A lot of people are. I'm not, but I get where you're coming from with that. What I think, though, is you've got a situation here where Disney probably doesn't have to pay her based on her contract because we all know how contracts lag behind technology and business and stuff like that from time to time. Right. But according to a couple of the articles that came out, though, the problem, why they're probably going to settle with her and probably give her her money is, and this happens also in business, you get emails going between Scarlett Johansson's people and their people, and one of their people sends an email with the wrong sentence in it. And that happened back in March when they said, hey, we're going to release this on Disney Plus as well. Yeah. The Marvel chief executive sent her an email that said, we understand that the plan should plan change, we would need to discuss with you and come to an understanding as the deal is based on a series of very large box office bonuses. So they acknowledged back then to her in an email that if we go this route, which they did, that they were acknowledging her point, and apparently that never come to fruition. This happens in sports contracts a lot where they go, well, if you're still playing in 2 years, we'll renegotiate in good faith. Right. Or if the market goes up for linebackers in the next year, we'll renegotiate. Well, who decides what good faith is?
Correct. So what's interesting here is this is a great example of why I hesitate to send business-related emails. I'm like, hey, can you just get on the phone with me really quick?
Absolutely. You and me both, brother. I agree.
I'm like, because I can already imagine the deposition video of me going, sure, Mr. Thomas, so when you sent this email on the 3rd of July.
Exactly.
And me
but
just
that's
going,
what business is, right? I mean, you as the chief, this wasn't even some intern that, like this is the chief executive of Marvel, right? Which the fact that they have a chief executive in charge of a movie franchise, right? Like at Disney, like you're in charge of Marvel crap. That's how big it is, right? And look, Disney came out the next day. Like at first, Disney wasn't taking any phone calls about this or whatever. Disney came out the next day and released a little account basically saying, the normal stuff you was to, how dare Scarlett Johansson, say things like this, especially during the world that we currently live in. We're all just trying to make things work together, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, look, they pulled the whole, and this, this happened again in sports sometimes when like they're renegotiating a contract and they're like, oh God, $1 million. He's such a quarterback. It's just a big baby. Who cares if he get paid $20 million or $22 million? You played football, right?
Right.
Disney did this whole, well, we paid her according to her contract. She's already received $20 million.
Yeah, but the point is, it's not about the money. We made a deal on terms, and you switched the terms up. And I believe in free markets, radical free markets.
Absolutely.
I also believe in one other thing, right? It's God, radical free markets, and then family, Fast and Furious, of course, family. And then fourth after all of that is be petty. Sometimes you have, like, no. I agreed to something. Right. Be petty. Like, we agreed to terms. And I'm only asking you to live up to the terms that we agreed to. The world has changed. I'm open to the dialogue about what that means in the context of, we made the contract in a universe where this was where stuff was weird.
Where streaming wasn't weird yet. Yeah, exactly.
And this is the world we live in now. I could live with, let's have a renegotiation, bring that 50 down to 20. I can live with that. What I can't live with is world change. Shove it. Nah.
Well, they're playing the court of public opinion in releasing this. By them coming out and saying, well, we've already given her a $20 million check. She's not suffering. She's a They're trying the public opinion. They don't care about the legalese at that point.
And
they
you
just
made
don't
$60 million in the first weekend on direct into your pocket off streaming.
Yeah. Exactly. So they just don't want, and that's why they'll probably end up paying her. Right, whatever she's wanting, and whatever, or at least a big
Scarlett
chunk enough.
Johansson, if you want to come be on our podcast and you want to formally, talk about this, we're so happy to have you.
Explain in a business and marketplace way how Disney screwed you over. Right, correct. We are here for it. Let us know. Yes. We'll make it work in our schedule.
That's correct. I mean, I'm pretty busy. I'm running a couple of businesses.
Danny is pretty busy, but for Scarlett Johansson, we will make.
I will make the time for Scarlett Johansson. Also, if there's plenty of actresses who would like to come. I'm here for that.
You know what? I don't know why, but I got a creepy vibe from you right then. I
don't know why you would get it.
This is a business and marketplace news podcast, right? This isn't Tinder for you. All right, let's go. Let's move on.
All right. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about his business, Big Man Gear. Big Man Gear is a fun brand. Fun as defined by the big man.
It's true.
You can go, it's meme t-shirts, man. It's not that hard to figure out.
It's not that hard to figure out. You go to bigmangear.com, you pick out a t-shirt that you like, and you order it, and you get it from Amazon in a day.
That's correct. I don't know if you get it in a day, you might get it in a couple of days, but,
whatever it is.
Right. So, this next story, which is super fun, Jollibee. Do you know what Jollibee is, big man?
I do not. I didn't until you sent this story, so why don't you inform me what it actually is?
So, Jollibee is a Filipino fast food franchise.
I can see how your mind got those mixed up, though. Canadian and Filipino.
No, sorry. The first sentence in the story from Nextshark is 4 Canadian provinces, and that's just got stuck in there. It's a Filipino fast food franchise.
Okay, but
I do a ton of business in the Philippines.
What kind of fast food franchise? Is it a burger joint? Is it a Filipino food? Whatever that is.
It's its own deal. Jollibee has in the West, it has a cult following. I know this because I was visiting some friends in Chicago. They're like, "We have a Jollibee," and I was like, "Okay,
okay."
They're like, "So do you want to go?"
Like a Whataburger? Is that?
That's the thing. Is like they have just these weird. And for those less than familiar with Filipino culture, there's a lot of traditional Asian vibes, but they were conquered by the Spanish, right? So there's a lot of weird. I shouldn't say weird. Just different, interesting stuff.
So Asian, Spanish.
I don't know how to explain it. Okay. I know
I
some
went
of their
out this
stuff
because
is
I read the articles Danny sent over, whatever. But I went out this from a strictly franchise-based, fast food-based kind of thing. I read 2 different articles on this.
Yeah.
I still can't answer what kind of food these. Like, I just need to go to. I didn't. It made sense. I should have just Googled it and went to their restaurant page.
Went to
or
their
whatever.
website and looked at their stuff.
Whoever's writing these new articles, though, is probably just as confused as I am because they didn't mention it in their thing. The whole point of this, though, is whatever kind of restaurant food that they make, they must be making money hands over fist.
That's correct.
Because their expansion in the last couple of years is insane.
And their plan to continue to expand includes 234 more stores in North America, which United States, Canada, and Mexico. I don't think they're moving into Mexico. I think it's mostly going to be California and parts of Canada.
But also include Times Square, downtown Chicago. These are not cheap places to get into. Opening up a fast food joint in Times Square is a big deal. I mean, you've got to be a big company at that point. You know what I mean?
And they've mostly gone into areas where there's a high concentration of Filipino Americans. Makes a ton of sense because they can build kind of an audience rather with people who are a little more familiar with it. Here's what else is interesting. In the Philippines, JFC, which owns Jollibee, operates Burger King and Panda Express in the Philippines, but worldwide they own the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, which they acquired back in 2019. And they own a majority stake, which they purchased in 2018, of Smashburger. So the holdings company that owns Jollibee they're not like a joke. They're a real player.
Well, I mean, that's $450 million in acquisitions in the last 3 years. Right. And that, I mean, they've got to be making money, right? They're expanding, they're making money. The whole in Filipino heavy neighborhoods and demographics and stuff like this. Right. Again, I think you've got a company that's not only growing, but growing in what I would call their sweet spot, right?
Right.
Hey, people, and again, I'm assuming this based on the number of franchises they have. If you're from the Philippines, like actually from the Philippines, you probably know what this company is. It'd be like coming to Texas and saying, hey, where's the nearest Whataburger, right?
Right.
I automatically know what you're talking about. They're putting Whataburgers everywhere you have southern fat rednecks, right? They're going to put a Whataburger down there. And then this way, they're going to find the group of, densely populated Filipinos and be like, hey.
Right. So, big man, one of the things that they make, and when they finally open up a franchise, maybe we'll in Texas somewhere, maybe we'll drive out and check it out, and we'll do a little video about it. We probably won't because I really like the videos.
Yeah, but Jollibee, though, I mean,
would Jollibee
work in Texas? I don't know. Maybe it does.
Do we
have a densely populated Filipino following in?
On the.
I would imagine in Houston or San Antonio. I would imagine
not Houston actually. It's in down on the border,
like Brownwood.
It's in the valley.
Yeah, that kind of stuff down in the valley. So maybe down in the valley, again, if that's their business model. So I'm not saying.
Hey man, I'll take a ride down there because when I go to get my prescriptions in Mexico, up the border. My favorite thing, and I watched a couple of videos in prep for this. This is my favorite thing that they have on the menu. It's called Jolly Spaghetti. It's a sweet style. It's they say sweet style sauce, but it's really ketchup. And it has ham, ground meat, and hot dog on spaghetti. So that's
whoa, ham. So I get is the food in this case, how like in because Hawaii is where Hawaii is, not a whole lot of cattle in Hawaii and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of recipes in Hawaii that rely on Spam or some kind of canned meat because it's shipped over to Hawaii, right? Is Philippines is like hot dogs, is that one of those things where we don't have.
So here's what I can tell you from having a lot of Filipino friends in college and high school. They do love Spam. They love Spam just like the Hawaiians love Spam. I couldn't tell you about the rest of it. I don't know. But I do know, a lot of their... I couldn't tell you. I don't want to be too, sure of myself here, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Because that sounds like college-level ramen, ketchup, hot
And
dogs.
so if you look at I'm on their website looking at they got burgers, but they also got a lot of stuff that feels like it might be from KFC. They got a bucket of chicken. Um, and I do know my Filipino friends do like chicken also. They like fried chicken. So,
Well, and I'm down for fried chicken, but
I'm not.
that
I hate fried chicken. So.
I'm not eating hot dogs in my spaghetti at this level of my
with ketchup sauce.
No, I am not.
I can't wait to buy the biggest size they have and take 2 bites and be like, I can't do this.
Like, no, that just seems wrong. You should not be putting hot dogs. If you're more than 25 years old, you should not be putting hot dogs
I'm
in
sorry,
spaghetti.
if you're more than 13, okay, and there hasn't been an emergency where your parents had to leave the house and you have to make ramen with ketchup and hot dogs, that's the only time anybody should eat that.
There's a lot of college kids out there that do weird things, and you know what I mean? But
they're stupid, and no one's going to college anymore, basically.
I agree.
Nonetheless, I just thought it was really interesting that in today's market, a company that's as big as Jollibee, as international as Jollibee, believes that there is room for another fast food player across the country, and they're selling out the big bucks to do it.
Well, in it doesn't look like they're bringing. I actually looked. It doesn't look like they're taking on any big debt to do it. They're not sacrificing the farm for the expansion. I mean, they're taking out loans, but they're not leveraging their entire company to do this. Again, their profit margins must be massive because, and if you're selling hot dog ketchup spaghetti, I'm sure your profit margins are huge. Is all I'm saying. So maybe we need to look into Jollibee Austin.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll be the face of their southern expansion.
You don't want my face to part of any fast food franchise.
Moving on to this next story, but before we do that, I do want to tell you about my company, Work at Home Stuff. We curate a selection of all the stuff you're going to need to work from home successfully, as it looks like going to be the wave of the future. And I
like the way you said curate. We like to curate around here.
Right. And this is coming from a guy who has spent most of his adult life working from home. So I've spent over a decade as a work from home guy. I have a very honest perspective on what you're going to need to make yourself feel comfortable. I know some people have weird routines about going to work from home. Like, I know somebody used to leave his house, drive around the block, come back. That's how he knows he's starting to work. I don't do any of that weird stuff, but I definitely know comfortable chair, a good desk, all of this stuff matters when you're working from home. You can hit up workinghomestuff.com. Check it out. This next story, it's a little personal to us because we're content creators. Zuck Billerstad.
I love how you jack up any of their names. Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, any of these multi-billionaires, probably all soon to be trillionaires at some point, right?
Yeah.
You jack up their names constantly, and you do it on purpose.
Correct.
You know, it's not like you don't know their names. Correct. You just enjoy jacking them up.
Yeah, and maybe there's going to be a shirt with all of their jacked up names coming on in the future. Don't ruin the surprise, big man.
Is there any reason why you like? I want to know. I don't know if the audience does, but I would love to know.
They deserve it. That's why they deserve it.
Did they do something personally to you?
Yes. Yes. They tracked me. They injected microchips in my butt.
Bill Gates personally injected microchips into your butt. That's
personally.
That sounds like a lawsuit for Scarlett Johansson, is what it sounds like to me. But all right.
I clicked update to Windows 10 on my last laptop. Got a knock at the door. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's old Willie Doors. Willie Doors says, right in the tuchus. So.
Anyway, so what is the story?
This is really important to us because, like I said, Zuck Billerstad is dropping an entire $1 billion.
Yes.
Through the end of next year, so through the end of 2022, through a new bonus program designed to help creatives plug into their ecosystem. You know what that means? All of the people you hate on the existing platforms are now going to be crowding up your Facebook timeline and they're going to get paid personally. I think he personally delivers the checks, that he writes them in his checkbook.
Well, look, Facebook, it's amazing to me that Facebook has been able to stay Facebook, the app that it is, with the users that it is, and not pay for content.
Right.
When even YouTube, but now YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff, but so it seems like everybody else started sharing revenue, and Facebook just never did because they never had to, right? And I think what they're, I think this becomes part of the, excuse me, this becomes part of the. They still have a lot of people using their app. They still have a lot of content being created, but it may not necessarily be the content that they want created. That they, you know what I mean, and that kind of stuff. This may be one of their fighting against ecosystems that have a tendency to happen on Facebook right now.
So one of the things that did happen when David Dobrik got the old-fashioned axe was it appeared, at least to the onlooker, they chopped up his old content and from his own personal channels started distributing it on Facebook because they realized he could still make money on Facebook because Facebook didn't. Right. And so what I mean is by that is to say that Facebook has never done anything to cultivate its own creators. Right.
No.
Whereas Instagram has incidentally cultivated butt models, and TikTok has cultivated insane people.
Right.
And,
Twitter
but
those places went at it from the very beginning, right? That's why YouTube became YouTube, is sharing revenue with what ended up being people with millions of views and that kind of stuff.
Right.
TikTok and Instagram, they all figured out that, hey, if we share revenue, by the way, it's not a lot of revenue, right? If we share at least some fraction. But Facebook, I think, for a long time went at it as, well, we don't have to. We're Facebook.
Right.
We don't have to. And what they found is if you were a creator, like a real creator, right? Like a Call Me Chris on TikTok, or I don't know who it would be on Instagram, or Philip DeFranco or Joe Rogan on YouTube and stuff like that. If you were a creator,
Joe Rogan.
If you were a creator, you're not using Facebook as a creative platform. You're just not. And this is why. Money talks, and you're not going to waste your time for free. This is Facebook's late round at doing it. And if you really go through these articles, I think that even though they're finally coming to the party with this money, they already are telling you flat out that they're not going to be very nice or happy about sharing it. I mean, they're talking about bonus initiatives for people that do seasonal involving an expansion of certain things, which basically means, hey, if it's Christmas time and your content gets to a certain, number of views, we might share some revenue with you. It basically looks like to me that they want everybody to be talking about that they're finally sharing revenue. Right. But they're going to make it such a moving target. They're already talking about minimums, about time that you spent on live, right, on Facebook Live or any of that kind of stuff. So they're already giving criteria that, hey, we're going to make this a moving target. We're only going to make it available to people that have large followings, and those followings are interactive. Not like, hey, TikTok, all right, you've got 2 million subscribers, right? You're into the
Snapchat
fun.
Spotlight program where they're giving out $1 million sometimes.
Right, Snapchat hands out $1 million a day, apparently.
Right.
I mean, that's insane, right?
The thing is, as creators, as people who make content, I'm coming at it and I'm currently beefing with Facebook because we rebranded our show, as you can see.
Yep.
And our former original podcast was called Big Man Podcast or Big Man Movie Podcast.
Yep.
Switched from that to Idiots versus Idiots, our Facebook page.
Right.
They had no problem with that. Here you go. You can change your name.
No problem with that.
Done. Now we try to change our name to Market Explainer. They're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so we're locked horns. And as somebody who we're very small on Facebook, right? But they're not even, we can't even, so I'm just saying as a creator, this is my existing experience with Facebook, which is sucky. which is I'm trying to do something good and I'm trying to improve. They don't want me to do it.
Well, they're like the DMV. You don't even have somebody you can call. Like they're like the DMV. You want to complain about the DMV, who are you going to call? You want to complain about whatever government entity. That Facebook is like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't even have. I looked previously years ago because I had an issue with some of the marketing stuff I was doing. At that point, there was no phone line. I don't know if there is now, but there is no phone line you could call. There was no Facebook customer service phone line. Everything was handled through Facebook at their discretion. Whether they answer or don't answer or how long it takes or whatever is at their discretion.
And here's the part that made my blood boil. My blood started boiling.
It did, folks.
They said you can appeal the fact that we denied your name change. You can appeal it in the support inbox. So I spent 2 years finding the support inbox, which is a regular inbox. Guess what? There's no message to appeal.
Yeah, there was no message there, and I looked as well.
Appeal there. So that, as a small end creator, thing that they want to invest in established creators, and all they're looking for is transferable. All they're looking to do is bring established creators from other platforms when those platforms cultivated creators.
Yep.
And historically, the creators that get banned, canceled, whatever, who have issues monetizing their content on YouTube. Ethan from H3 has talked about this several years ago, not recently, but content creators that were stealing content, right? And they couldn't monetize their content on any other platform. Go to Facebook. Because Facebook's like, we don't care. You have 50,000 likes on your page, whatever it is. That's infuriating to someone like me who's like, listen, I don't want to be advanced or pushed forward for any other reason other than we made the content that the community of people wanted to see or like.
Absolutely.
But then to see that we're not competing like that. We're competing for, well, if you do a better job stealing people's content than the people who make it do distributing it, we'll pay you.
I don't understand. I've never understood the whole we don't share revenue at all, and Facebook obviously makes more money than all of these others combined. TikTok, right? Everybody else, it doesn't matter. They make more money because the way advertising and the way they do advertising and that kind of stuff is insane. They are a machine, right? So I've never understood, and they got away with it because they could. They could. Nobody was leaving Facebook because they weren't sharing revenue, right? As far as your average Facebook, who is your Facebook user, right?
Right.
So they would go to other apps for that. But again, so they come out and say, we're going to give $1 billion, and then they're going to put this moving target on it. I think it's a combination of too little, too late. Honestly, I do. I think this is
100% agree.
If I was going to pick a non-story story of this week, this is it, because I think the $1 billion gets people talking about it. Obviously, we're talking about it and whatever. But the fact that how long it takes them to give away that $1 billion and how it's distributed, God only knows. This is one of those stories that we don't know how it's going to work until it's actually here.
And it's one of those things, too, where they get the credit for saying they're going to give away $1 billion, but we'll never know how much they give away to who.
Well, they're private companies, so they don't have to tell us anything. So whether they actually, their books are not public in the way that they do these kind of things.
This
so my point
specific thing is never going to be public.
They will never answer to giving. Hey, did you give away $1 billion? Right?
Correct.
Nobody's going to ever answer that question. And, they'll do what most companies do. They'll find a creator out there, some well-known somebody, that they'll hand a check in front of a camera, right, on Facebook Live or some bull crap like that, whatever, and they'll hand them a check for $100,000 or $1 million or whatever it may be, right? And they'll use that one instance or maybe a couple of them to say we're doing it.
Right, and then no one else, we had the $1 billion there, but no one met the requirement.
Yeah, here's the first person that won $1 million, that received $1 million bonus or whatever it is, and they'll go back and use that. I didn't know until I started looking at this. Not only, apparently we need to be on Snapchat. They're giving away $1 million a day in revenue sharing, and we don't have a Snapchat account, YouTube, obviously their $100 million fund. TikTok, opened up a $200 million creator fund, like within a month or so after they, came on board. And I mean, when you have these new places come out and sharing that kind of money,
right.
I don't know, and maybe TikTok being the craze that it's created, maybe that was the straw that broke the Facebook camel's back, is to them say, hey, here's a brand new app that is, going crazy, and making money and stuff like that. And all they did, there was no secret sauce to it. All they did is pay people, share revenue. They made it easy, simple, share revenue.
When you create a contest effectively, where you're going to give people money for creating good content, you're going to get so much content, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of what Facebook is, they just want people to read the headline. $1 billion. They're going to start posting their existing content from other places onto YouTube, onto Facebook, hoping to get that $1 billion, not realizing that basically you're never going to catch.
No, right? Because they'll move that target somehow along that way, that it's got to be unique content. And they're already doing it with, like I said, they've got on here, certain time, which invites viewers to streaming tips.
Right.
Making videos on Facebook, it will have to be within stream ads. They're going to push this, I guarantee you, on live streaming. Not necessarily, you know what I mean, content that you've created, like posting our show on Facebook, on our Facebook page, right? I guarantee you that will not be, eligible, whether it gets 1 million views or not. They want you to be on Facebook Live, Instagram Live. They want you to be on something like YouTube that they can post ads in, on, or during, right before or right after. And that's just going to be the way it's going to be.
And one last thing I just want to say about Facebook is, it's like using Windows 98. It's not intuitive. It's slow. It's clunky. It's garbage. It's the worst. I hate it. My
biggest issue, and again, I don't think this changes anything. I think if you use Facebook now, you're going to use Facebook tomorrow. This changes nothing I don't think there's a creator out there that's going to move as their main source of creation to Facebook because of this. Right. I think it's too little, too late, and I don't think it has any.
It's the Hyundai Sonata of social media.
Yeah,
nobody's passionate about their Hyundai Sonata. They're just like, well, it's a car.
Should you really get credit for doing something if you should have been doing it all along? Like, but my issue with Facebook, and I think this is going to be a lot of, and this is me being a Gen Xer in social media, I think your problem with a lot of social media platforms out there in the way that they're ran is you create tunnels of only seeing what you want to see, and they know you want to see it, and it creates what we call in today's world of echo chambers, of feeding information that you only want to hear and see. And I think for places like Facebook and some other places that I won't mention, I think that's going to be, in the short term, a very difficult proposition for those companies.
Are you talking about Parlay or Parler?
No, I'm not talking about anybody in specific. And look, TikTok, all these use algorithms to show you what they think you want to see.
Right.
But Facebook, especially, their algorithm has been very, very aggressive in what they think, right? Because you would be amazed how much Facebook knows about you, and you know what I mean, and stuff like that.
It's really wild. Is like, even if you don't use it, they will build a ghost profile on you based on the people around you who use it.
And how accurate it is. If your mom's on it, your grandmother's on it, you know what I mean? So like you said, even if you've never been on it, they know who you are, they know where you live, they know who your family members are, or whatever. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. We give all this stuff away for free. There's no such thing as living off the grid in today's world. It doesn't exist. So you might as well embrace the benefits of it, because you're not getting away from the negative of it. All right? Now, I'm not telling you to post your social security number to Facebook. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying that if they want to know, they already know, right? So, and because of the way it's structured. And But I think again the echo chambers that especially Facebook for whatever reason, and they've talked about their algorithm, and maybe we need to do that on a show at length. Maybe we do it as one of our side episodes and get a Facebook expert on, and you know what I mean, because their algorithm. Several articles have been written in the last couple of years about how aggressive in certain ways their algorithm has been and what it's done to people leaving Facebook in droves and stuff like that.
So let me just say this one last thing in closing on the story. I have gone over to Minds, MINDS. Amazing. It is an alternative social network. I love it. It doesn't hate me. Okay.
I don't even know what that is, but...
Well, I'm just saying, I've used it for years now. And yeah, it's a little more cloistered. You're going to find like specific communities. Of course, people like me kind of gravitate to it, like it more. But I would like, it's like Facebook, like from when I was in college. Like it was totally not, there's no, like it's so chill. And
is it MySpace? Is that how chill it was? MySpace was pretty chill.
It is not MySpace chill. MySpace chill is just a different level. I miss MySpace.
MySpace was like the what you would when you look back on MySpace and you look and you're young, right? I mean, you're a decade younger than I am.
Right.
MySpace was like if we were looking at the internet. Right, like we're looking at the internet as a timeline of the world, right? MySpace was the total anarchist wild west of social media, and then Facebook come along and kind of like modernized it and settled everything down and kind of put some rules in place and some ethics and morals a little bit in the beginning. MySpace was like whatever you want, man. Whatever you want, whenever you want it.
Totally.
Whatever you wanted to be, whatever lies you wanted to tell, whatever. There was no fact checking. There was no, you know what I mean? Nobody telling you were crazy. It was insane.
Yeah, but no one was behaving that nuts on MySpace.
You were on the wrong part of MySpace, if that's what you think. Did
you have MySpace?
Of course I had MySpace. It was like the first major social media platform. I'm 10 years older than you are. I was an adult when MySpace came out.
I didn't know this.
Okay, MySpace was like my first real interaction. MySpace was like the stepping stone between, and I truly believe this. Before MySpace, you had chats, Yahoo Chat, and these are all text-based chat rooms, right? MSN chat, all these kind of, and MySpace was that stepping stone between online chat rooms and what we now think of as social media. That was MySpace. It got everybody out of chat rooms off of Yahoo Chat, all these things that have died now at this point that nobody would recognize. MySpace was that stepping stone.
You know what's interesting, a little piece of history for the audience is all of what we understand apps, right? All of this stuff, the sharing economy, social media, it all starts in one place. Danny's theory, by the way. Napster. Right? Because Napster had some of that community function, which then Friendster brought to they just said, hey, Napster's illegal. Friendster, this is just about making friends and playing games or whatever Friendster was about. I never had a Friendster, I'm too young for that. But and then MySpace kind of moved into that social media category from being a website dedicated to musicians. That's why when you first had like MySpace, you put a song on there.
Right.
Edition, right?
Sure.
My song, of course, was the song from The Sopranos.
Well, look, all of this stems from, there's a lot of things that start out as something and then morph into something else, right?
Well, I'm just saying, but I'm just saying, like, if you look, Napster is what convinced the music industry to allow iTunes, Apple, to sell music individually, 99 cents a song, boosted iPod sales, which in turn gave Apple, after the guy came back, Steve Jobs came back to Apple, then in turn gave them the capitalization to create the iPhone, which then created the app market, which then a lot of people made a lot of money. So I'm just saying it all goes back to Napster. It all goes back to Napster.
Hey,
the sharing economy. Right?
I'm following you. I don't know if that's all 100% accurate, but I'm following you, and I like.
I'm a genius. I'm the smartest person on the internet doing a podcast.
You keep saying. So,
Correct.
all
Well, in
right. What dumb
closing,
thing do you have to tell us now, Danny?
I have nothing dumb to say. I just have to say that the Badger is loose. Operation Bixby has been greenlit.
I don't know what that is or means, but sure, I'm on board. We'll see you next time, folks.